Yo, what is up, my Nakama? So my name is Daniel and I'm a current third-year medical student on a 1-year leave of absence. And in this video, I'm going to share 3 reasons why I love and why I hate medical school. So let's get started. Now we're going to start off with the 3 things that I dislike about medical school just to get to kind of the juicy stuff first. But remember, even though these are 3 things that I really dislike about medical school, I don't think it should dissuade you from applying. It's just good to have this in your mind and be aware of if you are going to attend medical school or considering becoming a physician, because 4 years of your life in medical school is a very long time. And so speaking of time, pretty much your time is essentially gone. And that is kind of the first thing that I really dislike about medical school. Now, of course, I knew that there was going to be a lot of hours spent studying and a lot of time spent in the clinic, but I wasn't really aware of how much time that would actually take up out of each day. And to tell you the truth, it's a lot, especially during your preclinical years when you're studying for all your exams. You know, even after all your lectures, you still have to spend so much time learning the material. And by the time you know it, all you have left to do during the day is like either meal prep or exercise, and you can find time to do those things. Like I still found time to exercise, but that was essentially my life. It was just study, exercise, sleep, and repeat. And I didn't have that much time to do other things outside of those 3 things, which some people would consider a balanced lifestyle. But you know, I like relaxing, I like playing video games, I like hanging out with friends, and a lot of that was definitely curbed down. Now, not to say that you can't make time for that. Like I still went to social gatherings, I still went out to restaurants and stuff, but you have to be a lot more conscious of your time. And I was pretty shocked about how much time all this would take when I went into medical school, because to tell you the truth, when I was in university and I had probably a more difficult class load in terms of like, you know, the difficulty of classes I was taking. Like I was taking physical chemistry, Calc 3, coding classes. But for some reason, I still felt like I had a more balanced lifestyle in university. And that's probably all related back to the amount of material that was being given to us at a single time. Because as you've heard the analogy, like medical school is pretty much like drinking out of a fire hose. It's a constant just like waterfall of material. And when one block is over, you just move on straight to the next one. Especially if your preclinical years are like only 1.5 years long, then your kind of study time is very condensed. So that you have more time for your clinical years, of course, but that means those 1.5 years of preclinical are super jam-packed, and sometimes it can get a little rough. So I would say that's kind of the first thing that I dislike about medical school. And you know, you can always find a balance in things, you can always put off your studying, but if you actually want to be successful in medical school and stuff, you do have to put in that initial work, especially if you haven't ever taken anatomy or like a biochemistry course, and you're kind of learning all that material for the first time. You definitely have to put in the hours to really master that material and do well in your exams. All right, so the second thing that I hate about medical school is that this is highly dependent on which medical school you go to, but at least for mine, the grading system is absolute trash. Now, I do enjoy that our preclinical years are pass-fail, so our block exams are all pass-fail. Like when we had our anatomy exams, when we had our biochem exam, when we had our microbiology exam, all those exams were pass-fail, except step 1 was scored. So it's kind of interesting because even if you performed really bad on your in-house exam, as long as you were studying for step 1, technically you were doing the right thing, because step 1 is really the only score that matters in terms of when you're applying to residency. Now that step 1 is becoming pass-fail, however, I think there's going to be a lot more emphasis on your clinical education, which I think is more important anyways, and you just really need a baseline score for step 1, in my opinion. I don't think it has to be scaled in any way, because you know, some people are good test takers, but some people are way better clinicians. And at the end of the day, I think the latter matters more, where being a good clinician and being a good physician should be emphasized first, rather than, you know, how many biochemical pathways can you memorize and answer right on a standardized test. But that's actually not the grading system that I thought was trash. The grading system that I think is trash is our current clinical grading system. And the way it works is that, so you get evaluated basically like on 3 components. One component is your shelf score, which is an exam you take at the end of your clinical rotation. The second component is basically the clinical rotation itself, like your clinical evaluation, how well you present patients, how well you interact with patients, basically like how good of a team member you are on that rotation. And the third one is just like administrative tasks, so like turning in essays and assignments on time. Now, you would think that your block score is based off of the average of these three components. So for example, let's say you got 2 honors and then a high pass on the shelf score. You think that your overall score for that rotation would be in honors. However, that is completely false, at least in our school system. The way it works is our school takes your lowest score and that is your final score for the entire rotation. So let's say there was one quiz that you took that you got like an 8 out of 10 on, which is not a bad score, but an 8 out of 10 is probably like a high pass to a pass in terms of our grading system. But then you did phenomenally for the rest of the rotation. Even on the shelf, you aced the shelf. And then during your clinical evaluations, you were an exceptional medical student and your feedback was amazing and you were a good member of the team. However, because of that one quiz that you got, your final grade in that entire clinical block would be a high pass, depending on whatever the score cutoffs are. And I think that is just a horrible grading system, and I hope that other schools that do this, including my school, give this some serious consideration, because I don't even know why they do this. They're kind of just hurting themselves because they want us to do as well as possible so that we can get into good residencies. But by making it so hard to get such a good score for your clinical component, it just kind of makes it harder for us to present ourselves better to residency programs. But yeah, I could go on and on about that, but I'm gonna move on to the third thing that I hate about medical school. And we all know pretty much what it's gonna be, but it's that tuition is a crap ton. $60K per year is so much money, and it's only gonna be increasing as the years go on. You know, next year it's gonna be $62,000, $65,000, and if this just keeps on going upwards, and this isn't just for medical school, it's for all college tuition, there's gonna be like a huge bubble, and some students aren't gonna be able to afford to get this kind of education at all. And I even think that's a true statement. I don't know much of the data that backs it up, but I'm pretty sure that a ton of like underprivileged people who can't afford to go to medical school but are qualified to, they are deterred because of the huge tuition that it costs to attend medical school. Most people in the world do not have $60,000 to just cough up or to take on as debt because, you know, they're considering their family members, they're considering their current financial situation, and they just literally can't afford to attend medical school. And I don't think things are just gonna look well at all if tuition continues to rise. And another thing I wanted to mention is that I understand that we are paying for an education and we're paying for a lot of resources and we're paying for professors to teach us. And this makes sense during your preclinical years. However, in your 3rd and 4th year, what you'll notice is that you're almost working for the hospital. Now, you are still being taught a lot of things clinically and you learn a lot of things on a day-to-day basis, but there's not really professors that are teaching you. There's not really like resources that you're being handed out that cost a lot of money to get. Basically, you're somewhat on your own, but you're still paying the school $60,000 to basically work for the hospital, especially in your 4th year. I mean, in your 3rd year, you are being supervised a lot and you're being taught a lot of clinical medicine, but it's kind of funny because most of the lessons that I've learned are coming from residents and not from like attendings or professors. So yeah, overall, I do think we're paying a lot of money for this education, and I think something needs to be done in the near future if future pre-medical students want to even apply to medical school and be able to afford this type of education. Okay, so I'll move on to the 3 things that I love about medical school because, you know, I don't want to be negative the whole time, and there are some things about medical school that do make it worth it and that do make it fun. And the first thing that I'll mention is that the friends and companions and comrades that you make during medical school do make it worth it. You know, the friends that you make are like true friends because you're all kind of suffering together. You're all studying together. You know, you all go into anatomy lab late at night, dissecting your cadaver. You all help each other out. And at least at my school, I've noticed that it's not too much of like a cutthroat or competitive environment. In fact, we're all really collaborative. We all really want to help each other. And we all want to make sure that we're all performing at our best. And, you know, when you have a group of friends like these and a group of colleagues like this, then it makes medical school so much better. And I've just enjoyed all the friends and all the nakama that I've made at my school. So thank you all. Now, the second thing that I really love about medical school, which is interesting, is I actually do like what I'm learning and what I'm studying because I'm focused on things that I really love. Because at the end of the day, I am a scientist. I graduated with a degree in chemistry, so I love biochemistry. I love learning about the human body and human anatomy, it's an amazing experience to have, to be able to study something that you love and something that you're actually really interested in. And I like that we're so focused on this and that we're dedicating a lot of time to studying the human body, because like when I was in university and in high school, you'd have to take English classes and history classes, and not to say that those are bad classes to take, it's just that I was really bad at them and I didn't really enjoy them as much as I do like science and math and human anatomy and physiology. So now that I get to spend the majority of my time only studying that subject, I actually really enjoy that because that's kind of what I am passionate about. Now, the third thing that I love about medical school, and I know it's super cliche, but I didn't really come in with this feeling, is that helping people out is actually really cool. And I didn't realize how cool it was until I started my clinical rotations and I started actually becoming a member of the medical team. The responsibility of like taking care of another human being is an awesome and powerful responsibility to have, and it's something that shouldn't be taken lightly. And depending on how like vocal and confident you are, even as a third-year medical student, you can take a pretty big lead in terms of taking care of your patient and managing their care and presenting them to the team. Especially because as a third year, usually you only have to pick up 2 or 3 patients. So you have a lot more time to interact with your patients and to really hear their story and learn about their disease compared to the residents who are probably picking up like 8 to 10 patients and have to go a little faster. So I really tried to develop like a bond and a relationship with the patients that I take care of. And that really makes the experience worth it, because most patients, they're so grateful for your time and for trying to take care of them medically. I try and do my best to learn as much as I can about my patients and to present them well to my team so that, their medical outcomes are good and so that I actually feel like I was a part of their medical management. And in some cases I am, I might spot some abnormality in the morning. I might do like a cardiac auscultation and pick up like a new murmur or something. And, it's important to hear these things. It's important to do a good clinical exam, because then you might spot something that the resident or the attending wouldn't have time to see. And then you can present it to the team and then maybe order some sort of diagnostic follow-up and actually have like a critical role in the care of your patient. And so overall, this is definitely something that I've enjoyed while I've been in medical school. There are, of course, negatives and there are positives. And I think overall, as I mentioned with my first point, it's all about a balance. It's trying to balance time for your patients and for yourself and for enjoying activities outside of medical school. And yeah, this is pretty much the end of the 3 things that I love and hate about medical school. I know some of the topics that I talked about are a bit controversial, and I hope that I don't dissuade you from applying to medical school, because I think that if you truly have a passion for taking care of others and are not in it for the money and are not really being pressured to attend medical school, then I think this is a fantastic career choice for you. I hope something is done about tuition, because it is a lot of money, and you can always take out loans, of course, but for some people, they don't even have the option for taking on that debt. But if you are applying to medical school right now or thinking about it for the next application cycle, I wish you the best of luck. Feel free to reach out to me by email, and I might reply to you with just some advice or just some words of encouragement for my nakama out there. Stay strong, stay healthy, everyone, and as always, data bayo.